Over the years, I've become less of a coaster enthusiast and more of a park enthusiast. Yes, obviously roller coasters are the main reason most people visit a park, and when it comes to enjoying them, a park with a better lineup of coasters will be more enjoyable to me. However, as I've visited more parks throughout the years, I've become very keen on enjoying the park's atmosphere, looks, variety of rides, food, and of course, operations. So for this video, I'll be counting down my top 10 favorite amusement parks. This is actually part 2 of this video. If you want to see the first part where I rank the parks 10 through 6, make sure to go check that out beforehand. I'll put the link in the corner or something like that. And of course, this is parts 5 through 1. So make sure you go watch that video first before you watch this one. I can guarantee you that there will be opinions you do not agree with on this list, but that's the good thing, and everyone's opinion is different, and that's what makes these videos so fun. Number 5. Busch Gardens Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay, Florida. The Busch Gardens parks are known for beauty, and this park definitely lives up to the standard. Right when entering the park, all of the buildings are colorful with tons of tropical plant life surrounding the area. Also, when you first enter the park, you really can't see any of the rides except for the tops of Iron Gwazi and Falcon's Fury. I always love this concept of not seeing any rides when you enter a park, since it really helps with the immersion and the theming. Speaking of the rides, this park has a wonderful collection of coasters with some of the best B&Ms around. The park has my personal favorite coaster, Iron Gwazi, along with the aforementioned B&Ms like Montu, Kumba, and Shikra. The park also has a fun intimate family coaster, Cheetah Hunt. There's also an amazing drop tower, Falcon's Fury, which is one of the 2 intimate sky jumps in the whole world. Unfortunately, it's pretty unreliable and it's rarely ever open, but I've been lucky enough to ride it a few times on both my visits. The park also features 2 water rides with the Stanley Falls Log Flume, which is a fun aero flume, and there's an intimate rapids ride, Congo River Rapids. Another thing this park has as a main draw is the animals. Busch Gardens Tampa has a massive safari that can be experienced multiple ways. You can either take an upcharge immersive tour, or take the free tour on the park's train line, which actually is a very fun way to get around the park. The park also has a Von Roll Sky Ride, which I have unfortunately never experienced since it's been closed both of my visits. However, I love walking around this park since there's so much nature, small animal exhibits, and scenery around the park. This park really takes you away from the terrible state of Florida that's filled with too many highways and urban sprawl, and instead makes you feel like you are at a tropical destination that happens to house some of the best roller coasters in the world. The food here is also pretty great, as with any SeaWorld park. You'll find your typical park food, but there's also some great places like the Smokehouse, which are pretty much at every SeaWorld park. And Busch Gardens Tampa is one of the few reasons that I actually want to revisit Florida, so that means it's definitely great. Number 4. Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. This park is essentially Kings Dominion, but better, but with less trees and more landscaping. To start, Kings Island's coaster lineup is absolutely fantastic. This is another park that doesn't have a bad coaster. The park stars are easily Orion, Mystic Timbers, and Diamondback, but the park has icons too like the Beast, Racer, and Banshee. The park also has plenty of flat rides and family rides to choose from, along with one of the largest kids sections of any park. Kings Island has 3 water rides with the Aero Log Flume, Race for Your Life Charlie Brown, an intimate chute ride, Congo Falls, and the intimate rapids ride, Whitewater Canyon. Kings Island also has some fantastic restaurants. My personal favorite has to be the Miami River Brew House. There's also the iconic dessert option, the blue ice cream, and of course Skyline Chili, which everyone raves about. I've never had it, but a lot of people talk about it. But to be honest, when I went there, I don't know if I really wanted hot chili during the summer. Kings Island also has quite a few sit-down styled restaurants. While you do sit down, but you don't order at your table, you order at a cash register and then they bring out the food to you with like a buzzer ordering system. It's pretty nice, and I wish a lot of other parks had it, including my home park, Great Adventure. However, continuing on with the food, I mentioned the blue ice cream before, but this is something you have to try if you go to Kings Island for the first time. When I first ordered it, I thought it was just going to be vanilla ice cream that was blue or some sort of berry ice cream, but to be honest, it's a completely different flavor, and I really didn't know what flavor it was, and I really don't feel like looking it up. But either way, it was absolutely delicious and some of the best ice cream I've ever had, and it's soft serve, and I love soft serve. It reminds me of summer on the boardwalk. As I mentioned before, the park has way less trees than Kings Dominion, but it has more flowers and bushes to compensate. While I like the idea of Kings Dominion's International Street because of the trees, I do like how Kings Island's International Street is set up so you can look down at the path and just see everything. With the removal of the trees, International Street also feels a lot bigger, and now not only does it feel bigger, but I'm pretty sure it is bigger because it felt like a lot longer of a walk from the entrance to the Eiffel Tower, and of course it feels like there's a lot more shops too. However, I could be wrong just from the optical illusion of less trees. Something I forgot to note were the operations. The operations here are pretty good. They do use a lot of employees, like at the rides. For example, Orion had 6 on a train. However, they were being pretty fast, and with the IROC policies, they were making really the best of what they had. Not only were all the ride ops fast, they were also really friendly too. Pretty much all the employees here were very friendly. Overall, Kings Island really surprised me when I first visited it, and I really enjoyed this park way more than I thought it would. Number 3, Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. This is one of the most famous parks out there, with multiple record-breaking coasters and a great location on the shores of Lake Erie. Now, to be fair, there is a lot about this park that I do not like, but it's all little minor things that in the grand scheme don't matter all that much, but I'll get to that later. First of all, Cedar Point's coaster lineup is crazy. You have Steel Vengeance, Maverick, Magnum, Millennium, Raptor, and they're all amazing rides that are worthy of any top 50 coaster list. The park also has a mix of historic coasters like Blue Streak, Gemini, Corkscrew, and the aforementioned Magnum XL 200. There are a bunch of other coasters too that if I talked about, we would be here all day. Oh, we also can't forget about the 420-foot lawn ornament. Cedar Point also features 2 water rides, Whitewater Canyon, which is the rapids, and Snake River Falls, which is a shoot the chutes ride. It's pretty unfortunate that there is no real log flume here, since the Aero flume was removed from Maverick, and in their most recent log flume wasn't super reliable. I don't know why they thought an inverting log flume was a good idea, but not my choice. Getting onto the park's food, it's pretty good. I haven't eaten much here, but I really do like Back BP, which is the barbecue restaurant under Gemini's Turnaround and next to Magnum. There's also, of course, Chickies and Pete's, along with some other locations that offer some pretty good food, which seems like no matter where you eat, all the meals are going to be around $14, which isn't that bad actually. There's also locations outside of the park on the peninsula you can eat at, like Famous Dave's, Fridays, and Dairy Queen. The main sit-down restaurant here is called Melt, which unfortunately I've never eaten at since both times the wait was way too long to fit into my group's day. The park's looks is something I go back and forth on. Before entering the park, it's modern looking, and Gatekeeper flying over is such a cool visual to start the day. However, it really is a concrete jungle. I'm not the biggest fan of the modern look, quote unquote, but it's well kept and new looking, so that's nice. As soon as you enter the park, there's a violent clash of an attempt of classic charm and modern Cedar Point concrete jungle. Also, why is Ocean Motion placed right at the park entrance? It's just the weirdest placement for the ride ever, and in my opinion, having a stupid pirate ship ride right as you enter doesn't really say to me, beautiful seaside resort or coaster capital of the world. It's really my biggest pet peeve about this park, and it's honestly a stupid pet peeve. I'm not really sure if I'm the only one with this opinion, but I feel like nobody else really talks about it, so let me know if you also have this opinion. However, as you walk back further into the park, it gets a lot better. The famous Cedar Point Midway is very fun to walk down, with lots of great landscaping, shops, and of course, massive coasters surrounding you. The area near Gatekeeper used to look like not that great, but they're fixing it with the addition of the Wild Mouse, the Grand Pavilion, and the revitalized boardwalk area. And from what I've seen so far of pictures and footage, it looks pretty good. The backside of the park is my favorite though. The Gemini Midway is bright and filled with energy, especially at night, and of course the heavily wooded and well-themed Frontier Town and Frontier Trail. Also, another pet peeve I have about this park is the unwalkability. The park is essentially a big loop, which sounds great in concept, and you have forms of transit going front to back, but not side to side, which is the problem. The Skyway is super short, but it's more of a scenic observation ride, rather than a form of transit like Great Adventure Skyway, or of course Busch Gardens Tampa Skyway, although I've never ridden Busch Gardens Tampa, and I haven't seen it open in years, but apparently it brings you around the park. And of course the train ride is a nice ride from Millennium Force to Steel Vengeance. However, these methods are pretty slow, so getting to the front to the back is an absolute hike. Honestly, I think Cedar Point should just build another form of transit, or of course bring back the OG Skyway that went across the entire park. But another issue is, like I said, side to side. Like for example, Gemini and Millennium Force are practically next to each other, but from entrance to entrance of each ride, it's like a 20-minute walk because you have to go all the way around either Maverick and Steel Vengeance, or of course the lawn ornament. Either way, even with some of those pet peeves, this park is still fantastic, but obviously of course there's room to improve, and when there's so much good, you have to nitpick. Number 2, Busch Gardens Williamsburg in Williamsburg, Virginia. This is probably the most beautiful park in the United States, and there's so much good about this park. In fact, everything is almost perfect. Starting off with the rides, the park has a great collection of coasters. Pantheon is easily the star, but of course the supporting cast of coasters like Verbolten, Apollo's Chariot, and Alpengeist are rides that need to be mentioned. In terms of flat rides, there really isn't a lot, mainly just Finnegan's Flyer, and they used to have the Drop Tower, which was Mock Tower, I'm pretty sure it was called, but apparently it sucked. However, the park has quite a few water rides. Escape from Pompeii, which is a dark ride combination with a Chutes ride, the Scoot, which is the park's aero log flume, and of course the Rapids ride, Roman Rapids. The park also has a Von Roll Skyway, which is always a fun bonus for me. And this one's unique since it goes in a circle around the park with multiple stations rather than being a line with only 2 stations. The food here is better than almost all the other SeaWorld parks for whatever reason. They have the classic smokehouse that pretty much every SeaWorld park has, and it serves great food of course, but there's also many other options. The park is themed to several European countries: England, Scotland, Ireland, France, along with French Canada, which is called New France, Germany, and of course the Oktoberfest area, and finally Italy. All these areas are beautifully themed with shrubbery, flowers, trees, and of course architecture from each country. This is 100% the most beautiful park I've visited, and more than likely the most beautiful park in the United States. I could honestly spend hours just walking around, experiencing the scenery and atmosphere, rather than just riding the rides. However, there's really one main reason this park isn't my favorite, and that is the operations. They are dreadfully slow and inefficient sometimes. All the B&Ms run a maximum of 2 trains, even on busy days. Rides like Apollo's Chariot and Griffin should always be running 3 trains almost all the time and have lightning fast operations. Same thing with Alpengeist, but with tighter trains, it can be a bit harder to be fast at. Verbolten can run up to 5 trains, and when I was there, it was only running one of the 2 stations with 2 trains, and they would stack each time. But it seems like all the SeaWorld parks seem to have this problem. But yeah, the operations here are pretty bad sometimes, and pretty unacceptable for this caliber of a park. And the park goes into the same category for Hershey Park. If the ops were better, this park would soar. However, that's literally my only complaint about this park because everything else is so great. And coming in at number 1 for my favorite theme park is Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I love this place so much. It's pretty much a perfect park to me. The ride collection is one of my favorites out there. And could they have more? Sure. But what they have fills almost all the gaps at any other park. Lightning Rod was my number 1 coaster for pretty much 4 years until I rode Iron Gwazi. Thunderhead is one of my favorite wooden coasters with its intense laterals and airtime. Tennessee Tornado is a fantastic looping coaster with airtime and positive G's. And then of course there's the other thrill coasters and the massive family coaster collection. The flat ride collection is pretty good here too. Barnstormer, their S&S Scream and Swing, is the main flat ride, but there's also Dropline, which is their drop tower by Funtime, a disco, a pirate ship, flyers, and a Chance Rides Aviator, which is an interesting take on a swing tower. It wasn't that fun, but it's a nice observation ride. They also have a large flume ride and rapids rides to cool off during the summer. There's also a scenic train ride that goes throughout the entire park. It is a round trip, so technically not a transport ride, but it's still really cool. The 2 locomotives for the train are Baldwin 192 and 70, originally built for the White Pass and Yukon Railroad in 1943 and 1938. They're 2 really cool pieces of history that still exist and are operational at the park. Transitioning to the food here, it's all good. In fact, most of it's great. There is of course the world famous cinnamon bread, and it meets the hype. My favorite restaurant here was definitely the Front Porch Cafe. It's all southern comfort food in a sit-down style restaurant, and when I visited in 2019, the food was cheap and the portions were massive, and of course it's delicious. If there is one thing that's good about the South, it's definitely the food. Transitioning to the looks of the park looks almost as good as Busch Gardens Williamsburg in my opinion. I didn't get to see all the trees and the plant life in bloom unfortunately, since my only visit was during their Christmas event, but the park was instead covered with dazzling lights and beautiful holiday theming. Even if you don't like rides, there's also plenty of shows, shopping, and other experiences here. This is truly a park for everyone, and with everyone saying how much better Silver Dollar City is, I really want to see how it compares, especially since I love Dollywood so much. Thanks for watching everybody. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed, and of course subscribe for more theme park and travel content just like this. Comment your favorite parks down below. I really enjoy engaging with you guys and seeing all of your opinions, and I try to respond to every comment at least some sort of way. Once again, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.